Hello, and thanks for tuning in to M Compass Media. I'm Finbar Markey. I'm joined again this week by Peter O'Donoghue from Cork. Peter is a well-known community activist down in Cork, and he is heading a local campaign which is fast becoming national to save cash as a payment option into the future. Peter, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Finbar.
No problem at all. Peter, I asked you on today because there seems to have been a bit of a media blitz over the last few days about this notion of a cashless society. And it's off the back of the publication by the Banking and Payments Federation that, a report that came out this week suggesting that cashless transactions have increased by 32% since 2021. The article in particular that we are going to focus on is from the Irish Mail last Monday. And the article interviews a guy called Lowe from moneydoctors.ie, whilst they also discuss the Banking Payments Federation report. But the guy from moneydoctors.ie really does emphasize where we're going in terms of a cashless society into the near, middle and far future. So we're just going to read through that article first, and then we're going to come back to Peter, because I asked him to come onto the show today just to discuss this article in particular, because it seems to be one of the more driving articles that have come out over the last week in what seems to be a promotion of cashless society at a large national level by the mainstream media. Whether they're getting funded to do it or not, I don't know. Let's look at this article. Experts claim Ireland could become a cashless society within 5 years after contactless payments soared by almost a third in a year. A study conducted by the Banking and Payments Federation of Ireland found almost 18 billion in contactless payments were made last year, the highest level recorded since 2016, and a jump of almost 32% on 2021. In the final 3 months of last year, there were 3 million contactless payments a day worth 53 million euros, averaging around 18 euros per transaction. It's the highest daily contactless spend since the BFI started collecting figures in 2016. John Lowe of moneydoctors.ie said that the way we pay for things will continue to change, but he expects cash to be almost a thing of the past in 5 years. The finance expert said, "We're becoming a cashless society. I was over in London 2 weeks ago at a Tottenham versus Nottingham Forest match. I brought sterling with me, but I couldn't really use it. I could not use it in the football ground at all. I use my phone to pay for things most of the time. It's becoming more and more apparent that we're in a cashless society within 5 years. The end of cash could spell disaster for those operating in the black economy," Mr. Lowe warned. "Changes are already happening around us," Mr. Lowe added, pointing to Revolut now beginning to offer car insurance and loans. He said these companies do not need to open physical branches or hire as many staff. They want customers to use their products solely online as it saves them money. Some people are reluctant to go cashless, people who are skeptical about the security of online banking, those who are not tech savvy, and those who are older. It's going to be tough for them, particularly livelihoods which depend on being a cash business. But look to the future. Within 50 years, you'll have a chip in your thumb and you'll be able to do everything with that. You will walk into a shop and the chip in your hand will know you're out of beans before you even realize. However, he went on to say that in general, older generations are a lot more tech savvy these days. The Banking Payments Federation of Ireland report also found the volume of online and mobile banking payments continued to grow by 5% year on year in the last quarter of 2022 to 36.7 million, the highest quarterly volume since the data service began in 2016. Commenting on the figures, Gillian Byrne, the BPFI's head of payments, said, "This is the continuation of the trend seen in recent years, and figures reveal volumes have been more than doubled to 143 million since 2016, when there were only 71 million euros in transactions." So there's that story, Peter. There's a lot to unpack in it, isn't there? In terms of where we'd maybe like to focus first, maybe just in terms of the increase in the numbers of people using cards to make payments. I think there's an inference in there that people are doing this by choice, and maybe quite often they are. But I'm sure there's many cases where people actually feel that they have no choice. And that's where your campaign comes in, isn't it? It's about giving people that plurality of choice. What did you make of the article itself and the fact that it's highlighting this increase in payments, which seems to be very real, this increase in cashless payments, but it also seems to be presenting us with quite a scary looking future in which when we walk into a shop, the chip in our hand will know that we're out of beans before we do, and will order those beans in some way, and they'll be paid for in some way through this chip in your thumb or in your hand. That's a scary vision. What did you make of this article overall, Peter?
Yeah, so I read the article. I read it first thing Monday morning, and the first word that came to my mind was wow. I was blown back by the article, as in, 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, we were in Dáil, and the government gave a commitment that cash will always be protected and accepted in our society. And roll on 3 weeks later, this article appears up, which is telling us that and this is, I suppose, what concerned me. It wasn't saying that this might happen. The article was written around that this is inevitable. It's just the way the article was portrayed, that this is an inevitability, that within 5 years, there's going to be no cash in this country. And I was thinking, like, obviously 3 weeks ago, the government gave a commitment that cash will always be protected. And now we have the media here, through the Irish Mail, telling us, the people, that there will be no cash in 5 years. And what's more, then I went to work that day, and every radio station I listened to that day, and I listened to multiple radio stations, they were all talking about the cashless society and how cash has been taken out of society. And I was thinking back to 3 weeks previous. We were up in Dáil, and the motion was passed that cash will always be accepted, and businesses would be obliged to accept cash, and not discriminate against their customers who use cash only. So when that motion was passed, there was absolutely no media attention given to that whatsoever, in any way, shape, or form. In the gallery in Dáil on that day, there was no journalist there. We never heard it on RTE. We never heard about that motion through any mainstream media platform. Yet roll on 3 weeks later, and this federation, what are they called, the Banking and Payments Federation of Ireland, they have a meeting, and all of a sudden, it's all over the airwaves that cash is going to be taken out of society, that it's inevitable. And what struck me was the complete, unbiased media attention given to it. That's what really struck me.
Yeah. And it seemed almost like a button was pressed, and there was a massive, and it was all off the back of this, the Banking and Payments Federation of Ireland report that came out. In terms of the vision of the future that it's presenting to us, this idea of chips and all that kind of stuff, what's your? I know it's airy-fairy to a degree, but there have already been pilot schemes of this done in other countries. What do you think about all of that?
Yeah, it's scary stuff, that this is even considered now. I suppose a short while back, this would have been considered a crazy conspiracy theory, and now it's being said openly in the mainstream media. It's scary stuff. But I suppose just regard the Banking and Payments Federation of Ireland, I looked them up to see who they were, and they were on their website. They call themselves the voice of banking, and they advocate at a domestic and European Union level on all issues regards banking. So it is quite obvious that this federation, they represent the banks in Ireland. And as we said previously, who are the big winners when it comes to a cashless society? Who are the big winners when it comes to tap transactions and online financial transactions? It's the banks, because remember we said they take up to 3.5% of a cut from every financial transaction. So then we have this federation who are representing banks basically, and they are pushing this narrative out there, and the entire mainstream media in Ireland is running with it. So yeah, that was concerning for me.
I think what's concerning for me, and I know other people may not be overly concerned by it. I am concerned about the impact on older people, vulnerable people, cash-based businesses. But another thing that concerns me is that your entire finances of your life will be digitally controlled. And we all know that criminals can interfere with that at a digital level. Governments could interfere with that at a digital level. And when we look at some of the implications of international treaties that have been at least attempted to be thrown at us, such as the North American and European economic treaties that were discussed over the last 10 to 15 years, the empowerment of private businesses to be able to, first of all, sue governments, for instance, but also to have the power to seize funds and things like that. It's very, very scary where we might be going in terms of our own independence and our freedom into the future if we don't have cash, which has been used for so many centuries. One thing that I did note in that article, Peter, while we're on the subject, is the reference to black market businesses. It was thrown in there, right in the middle, and to me there was almost an inference that, you know, people who want to keep cash, maybe they're not always legit. And that just stood out to me. Did it stand out to you at all?
Yeah, so obviously there's a discrimination issue regards cashless society, but there's also an issue of control, which you alluded to earlier there, and there is an issue of privacy. You know, if we go down the road of cashless society, the government, they will know everything about us. They will know what we have for breakfast, dinner, and supper, and you know that's very concerning for me. You know, obviously, cash is used for many different purposes, and I've highlighted in the past, you know, regards, say, a busker on the street. You know, how do they get paid? Is their income, is it taxable? You know, there's a lot of issues, and like, where do we go? Like, when we sell maybe household items, you know, maybe secondhand television, is that taxable income? And you know, it's just another erosion of our individual freedom, another breach of our individual privacy, and it's like, I suppose, Big Brother is watching us more and more every day. That's what I would be concerned about.
Yeah. In terms of what to look out for in the near future in relation to this campaign, how can people, if it's the case that the Dáil and the government will mealy mouth and say anything they think we want to hear, but just press ahead anyway, if it's the case that the mainstream media are fully bought out on this issue in favour of a cashless society, how do people try to influence this debate? Just on a closing question for you, Peter, what can they do at a local level to try to influence this debate?
Yeah, so obviously a few weeks ago, the government, they accepted the motion, and they accepted a cash will always be accepted. But what we've seen in the past is governments accepting motions like this, which would potentially embarrass them if they had to debate it in the Dáil. And what they tend to do is just shelve the motion, let it gather dust, and just drive on with their plans anyway. So the battle is not over here. I said the battle has just begun. And what anybody listening in today can do as an individual is, if you see any business or organization that's refusing cash, and if you hear of any business in your locality that's refusing cash, I would suggest that you maybe go to that business and just inform them of the implications of them going cashless on society, and especially on the people in our society who use cash, like our elderly, intellectually disabled, people without a bank account, people without cards. You know, there's a large, recent immigrants, even a large section of society that can only use cash. And I would suggest to people that they go to these businesses who are not accepting cash, just explain to them the discrimination that this policy implements on our society, and hopefully that business will see the discrimination, and hopefully they will change course and accept both cash and card. But if they still refuse to accept cash, I would urge people to boycott those businesses, boycott those premises, spread the word, and to bring your business to businesses. And there's many very good businesses out there who don't discriminate in any way whatsoever. So bring your businesses to those premises and those businesses instead.
That's good advice, Peter. Something that people can do locally, but again, and I'm sure you do mean to do it in a polite and a dignified way as well. Peter O'Donoghue, thanks for joining us again this week to talk about this issue. It's a live issue. The media won't talk about it, the mainstream media. So we're going to keep on talking about it. And hopefully people out there will do exactly what you just said, Peter. And we'll go up and we'll politely say to business owners, we would love to use your quality services, your quality business, but we're just concerned about this issue of you not accepting cash. And as such, we will have to take our business elsewhere unless you reconsider. Peter, you'll join us again soon, I hope.
Yeah, thank you very much, Finbar.